we met founder, CEO and Executive Director of Verita Healthcare Group, Julian Andriesz, in MahaNakhon, Bangkok. To find out more about his healthcare philosophy and how it evolved. Prior to founding Veritas, Julian had a number of successful businesses in Singapore.
I came to Singapore when I was 24 years old in 1989, 1990. So I'd actually been to university in the UK after being at school there, and I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So at 17 years old, I started my first business while I was at university.
What was that?
It was actually seafood stalls around Billingsgate Market. I had the straw hats and the stripy vests, and we had market stalls around London. And over the next 17 years, I built up a group of diverse companies, primarily based in Southeast Asia. And so we became one of the biggest exporters and processors of seafood from Vietnam. We were involved in oil and gas fabrication, boat building, property development.
Julian's mother's diagnosis of cancer changed his life. This led him to divest all his companies and meet with some of the world's leading experts in the fields of disruptive medicine.
And what actually happened was around the year 2000, my mother got cancer. She was living in France at the time, and she got a ovarian cancer. They detected it quite late stage, because often ovarian cancer doesn't present itself with any symptoms. And I was flying backwards and forwards between Asia and France, so seeing my mother, and she was going downhill. She was having chemotherapy, radiation surgery, and wasn't getting any better. There was spells of improvement, and then it metastasized around the body, and she got cancer in other parts of the body. So I began to look at the whole sort of paradigm of healthcare, especially when it came to disease treatment and cancer, and think, there must be a better way than bombarding the body with toxins and poisons and burning and cutting things out. And when I looked at it, I realized, wow, that's the protocol for the last 60 years. And then I looked at the statistics and realized that the 5-year survival rates for most cancer patients hasn't really changed much in 60 years. For certain cancers it has.
Right.
But in spite of the millions and millions of dollars being put into research, what you get as a member of the public is pretty much the same as it was previously. So that started a journey for me, and I started going around the world talking to scientists and doctors, looking at the new technologies, looking at immunotherapies, looking at ways to tackle cancer without actually destroying what the body uses to fight off cancer in the first place.
Right.
And that was the start of the journey, and it led to me divesting my businesses in the year 2000 to the year 2008, I think, which was lucky because it was just before the big crash.
Oh, wow.
And so, that was one of the benefits, but it wasn't because I was a genius, it was just because of the timing was lucky.
The leading edge therapies include advanced biological age screening and genetic profiling. Julian explains a little bit more about what these therapies actually are.
So what we do is what we call functional medicine. So what we would do is we'll spend an hour with the patient, we'd put them through various screenings, and we'd say, look, is this the beginning of something more chronic? Is this the early stages of an autoimmune issue? Is this something which could lead to a serious problem later? So instead of the quick fix, which we give to everybody the same, what we're looking at is the individual patient and coming up with a program designed specifically for them. You go with a cough or a cold. All around the world now they give you the antibiotic, even if it's a viral infection. And this is why you've got resistant strains of bacteria now. It's becoming, superbugs are becoming a reality and a real problem for the future. But also there's a lot of side effects for antibiotics, and what they now know is the gut health is very much linked with the brain, and it can control mood, depression, neurological disorders. Many things related to your health are focused on the gut. So antibiotics have very adverse side effects. In fact, most pharmaceutical drugs have bad adverse side effects. You just look at the terms on the small print on the box. So you've heard of genetic testing. A lot of people are talking about genetics.
Yeah.
Science has already moved way beyond that to epigenetics.
Mm-hmm.
So epigenetics, what we now realize is that genetics have an influence on what happens to our bodies,
mm-hmm.
but it's the lifestyle and environment factors that really lead to disease
trigger.
states. They're the trigger.
Uh-huh.
And the good news is that those things are reversible,
uh-huh.
and you can change them, so you're not predestined. So if you look at the rise in chronic diseases around the world, most of them are preventable. So we're talking about obesity, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, hypertension, all these different things. Autoimmune. All of these things are influenced by stress factors, toxicity, mm-hmm. what you're eating, what you're not eating, mm-hmm. City living, the water supply, or the air you're breathing. So these things combine with your genetics to create these problems, and they're all preventable. That's the key point. So that's the good news. Now what we need to do is educate the people, explain how these things are happening, and one of these things is through epigenetics is looking at these influences on our DNA.
What does epi mean?
Epi basically means the things that surround your genetics.
Okay.
So we're talking about lifestyle and environment influences, which can change the way that our body cells reproduce, mm-hmm. and the quality of the cell that's reproduced, okay. and the functionality, metabolism, etc.
Mm-hmm. Verita Health is headquartered in Singapore, with offices and manufacturing facilities in Australia, Malaysia and Thailand, with clinics in Germany, Thailand and Turkey, and over 35 partner clinics and hospitals across Southeast Asia and Europe. Bangkok's state-of-the-art healthcare clinic now offers groundbreaking preventative and functional health solutions.